Hey guys, good morning. Today we found ourselves over St. John's, Newfoundland. We're somewhere in the vicinity anyways. And we'll pretend the ILS doesn't work. And our recommended approach would be, we'll say an RNAV. We'll try that. I don't have anything set up. Literally just took off. Went into the cockpit. I did put on an auto throttle setting before. So all I did was click this down arrow. Sometimes you have to do that to get it from managed mode to reference mode. I think that's what you call it. But anyways, to the point where you can adjust this number. So I just made it 200. And what I'm going to do now is use my auto throttle. I just turned it on. It'll just keep me at 200 knots. While we're above the cloud, we're going to make a plan. So first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to set up autopilot for straight and level. And I don't want to climb or anything. We're losing speed, which is good. 200 knots is fine. I don't want to go too far away. I'm going to center my heading bug, or my track bug, whatever you want to call it in this case. And then I'm going to go to down here. We'll go heading, alt, and engage. And it's set for 24,000. That's fine for now. I just want to make sure that we're in a spot where we can leave the plane alone and do our thing for navigation. So let's bring up our GTN 750. Let's see where we're at in the map. We'll pretend this is on a tablet or something. Okay, map. Alright, we're kind of veering away. I'm gonna turn us back towards the south. Actually, yeah, just while we make our plan. And then we'll make another plan based on that plan. It's kind of how it works. You gotta have one plan in place, ready for the next step, but also if something changes, you gotta be able to handle that as well. So, just gonna go back towards the south. Like I say, if you put the track bug or heading bug 20 degrees before your turn, if it turns too steep and you start losing altitude, look, we were at 24,000, now we're at 23,000. We've literally lost over 1,000 feet, even though alt is still captured. That's ridiculous. Sorry, DC Designs, man, you guys gotta fix that. Shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to be doing 600 knots to use the autopilot and not lose altitude. Okay, and you're not going to do 600 knots on an approach, let's just say that. Back to the map. Let's make a flight plan. We'll pretend we went from Gander, Newfoundland to St. John's. Procedure, oh, not that. Sorry, flight plan. That'll come up. We'll set origin once it lets us. There we go. CYYT for Gander. It's not even coming up. There we go. CYYT for Torbay. Ooh. We'll look at our map to double check everything looks correct, and it does. Good. And now what we want to do is we'll see our options for the approaches for the RNAV. Now I'm going to use this app. In real life you could use your approach plates and all that, and they're going to be available unless they're no-tammed out. But in this case, sometimes Flight Sim doesn't have all the real world approaches, so we'll just go to procedure, see what we have as our options. They have quite a bit. The 3 ILSs here, but we'll pretend that's not available. I would like to do the RNAV Zulu runway 29, takes us out over the ocean to Gora, T-Sox, and inbound. So let's do that. I'm going to load the approach. We'll look at it on our map just to analyze what we got to do. Alright, that's actually not so bad. I got 200 knots set up on our speed, and let me just get out my plate. I'm going to use an app called Flight Plan Go. I'll try to bring my phone up on the screen so you can see what I'm looking at here. I'm going to change the airport to CYYT. Here we go. We're going to look up the RNAV Zulu 29. And this is it. So it says Gora speed restriction 210 knots, 3,000 feet, as in not below 3,000 feet. After Gora, we're still limited to 3,000 feet to T-SOX. And T-SOX, it's 190 knot speed restriction. Then we turn to our inbound leg of 285. We're good down to as low as 2,200 feet to app mod. And at app mod, we go down to 1,500 feet if we choose to. And then at FVAG, that's our final approach waypoint, we're good to do a step down to 1,100 feet. Then after SACS up, we're good to our MDA. We're just going to use the LNAV, which is 840, so we'll assume that is 900. Alright, does that make sense? Our final approach inbound track is 285 degrees. Our 100-mile safe altitude was 2,900. And sector altitude for this approach was 2,300. The standard approach, except one thing I forgot to tell you is that it's winter time. And it's -20 and there's snow down there. I don't know how this plane's going to handle it in the snow, so that's another bonus. We're going to try this out as well. I'm going to make sure, look, our anti-ice is now onto auto. Well, they call it pitot heat now too. If you put the mouse over the button, it says pitot heat, so you definitely need that. Windshield, okay, well, hopefully that keeps it clear for us on the way down through. I don't know how these planes actually would handle an ice. I don't even know if they're approved for any sort of known icing, but we're going to pretend that they are, and we're going to try it. Okay, so I'm going to start a turn towards Gora. And what I'm going to do now is disconnect the autopilot. I'm going to zoom out my range so I can see the track that we're trying to get to, and the waypoints. I'm going to get rid of the map that we have because we don't need that right now. Disabling the autopilot. And I have to trim a bit for some reason. It's not letting me go nose down. There we go. You will find that this plane does have lots of bugs. You know, it does things that it's so automated that you don't know what it's doing sometimes, but once you figure out what to expect with it and how to deal with it, it's not so bad. But you do have to take some time to figure it out. I'm going to bias a little bit of distance going to Gora by making some larger S-turns. We're dropping pretty fast. I want to hit around 4,000 feet and then start leveling off and keeping it so it's not such a steep dive. We're at 600 knots now. There we go, 4,000. We're going to go for about 3,000. Remember, 100-mile safe was 2,900. Recentering my heading bug in this direction. We're going to still make it work. And I'm going to reset my heading alt engage, right? So that just put the altitude to 3,500. And the plane's going to do its own thing to try to work with the autopilot. Okay, so we turn the autopilot back on. It is climbing. I don't know why it's going to 5,000. I have 3,500 set there. Once again, there are lots of unpredictable things. It says VNAV alt. I did not turn on VNAV. There, look, it's stuck on and I didn't even do that. That's this automation, and I don't know why it did that. I don't trust the VNAV in this plane. We're going to try that again. Alt heading, and on, there. So when the VNAV is on, you'll see VNAV alt or VNAV path or VNAV speed, but you can't change it. It's like it's so pre-programmed that you're better off just to use alt, and in this case do step downs. I know you know, a constant descent angle is preferred for safety in real life. However, if the equipment can't do it, right now this equipment can't really do it, not reliably and not to the point where you can fully understand it, because a lot of times what happens when you have that set, this speed gets locked to whatever's in the flight plan, and you're doing 250 knots inside a control zone, and that's illegal, right? So you can't even do that. So Anyways, food for thought. I don't use VNAV in this plane because it's unreliable at this time. Maybe an update they'll fix it. I certainly hope they do. Once again, I'm not complaining because I love this plane, but there are some bugs. I'm going to bring our altitude from 6,100 down to the 3,000 we had planned before the VNAV took over, without my permission. $3,000 is set. Pretend we were cleared for it. Going to continue our turn inbound towards Gora, which is right there. That's our initial approach fix in this case. There's a 210 knot speed restriction. I'm going to lower my speed. If you can look in this window up here, you'll see this number I'm bringing down. I have an autopilot tutorial already out to show how to do all this stuff if you wanted to learn how to do it. But I'm actually going to set it to the other speed restriction, so in case I forget, it's already there. So I'll leave it at 190, because that's our restriction at TSOX. I'm not in a rush. I want to get down safe. Okay, level off, plane. See, you set a heading and it goes like 45 degrees past it if you're not careful and do it slow. Once again, that's got to be fixed, DC. Anyways, bringing up the GTN 750 again. I'm going to reload the flight plan. It'll give me a path directly from where I'm at. We'll continue in with that. So, as if we're navigating directly towards it, I'm going to go back to procedure, select the approach, load the approach. There's no difference between load and activate and just load. So, I'm getting a warning horn, and it's probably because my gear's up. I'm not sure. Could be configuration. But anyways, we have a line going direct towards Gora. I'm going to turn on nav mode over here. And I want to keep in mind, I'll let you know that before we would have done that, you would check this switch that it's on GPS mode. Even though it says nav for the side that the switch is on, it is on GPS mode. If I click this, it'll go to nav mode. So that's just opposite. It was mislabeled, or the switch is misanimated, we'll say. Goes to the wrong side, but this one has to be in GPS mode, even though it says nav. And then you can click this nav button to get it on the track that you have set up in your GPS. But because we're doing an approach, what I'm going to do is hit the magic button, and I'm going to start calling this the magic button, because when I hit this button, it changes everything. It swaps this button, a whole pile of other things, puts on landing mode. If I have this set to a heading instead of track, that'll change it to track. And sometimes it turns on VNAV too, and you don't even know it did it. So let's see what happens when I hit the magic button. There. Is it going to do a go around? It does that sometimes too. Oh, actually, yeah, I don't think it's a go around that it does. Let's see, what's it doing? It's climbing. We're 500 feet above our assigned or altitude that we programmed in. And all I did was hit that magic button, right? But anyways, it says track, final approach course, alt, glide profile. I don't know why that's there, because it shouldn't be. I don't have VNAV on, and I don't intend to turn it on. So, this isn't supposed to be a complaint video. I'm just literally trying to show you how to do an RNAV approach. We're going to go to Gora, TSOX, turn inbound, and follow our step downs as we go along. I'm going to decrease the range so we can see as we get closer. We can't be below 3,000 feet at Gora and TSOX, and we'll turn in. Once we turn into app mod, we can go down to 2,200 feet. Hopefully we're not picking up too much ice. Now also another thing in real life, you be careful of your flaps use in ice and your airspeed, because you want to go to speed where the ice isn't going to stick to the airframe too bad, or any components. And also, if you have your flaps down for too long, the flaps will catch the ice underneath, and that could cause problems if you hit severe icing. Remember one day we hit ice so bad coming into here, actually doing this approach, but it was the ILS, and it was severe icing. Like the NOTAM that we read had no mention of it. It did talk about icing, but we flew in icing all the time, but this day was bad. So you learn a lot. One thing to do it in the comfort of your living room on flight sim, and there's no danger, but in real life when you're up there and you're getting ice built up on the plane, and you have to really think critically sometimes, because situations change and the weather is something that you cannot control. You just have to make sure that you keep yourself in safe places all the time. Alright, we're past Gora. The only thing I did besides turn on my regular GPS mode where you would track it, which is really just make sure that's on GPS over here, and then this button to nav. The only thing I did prior to starting this approach was click this button. Now there's one thing I'll mention. If I was out over the map, let me bring it back just to show you. For this T that we're following in, if I was out here and I was directed to T-SOX, I'd have a line going to T-SOX, right? But when I got to T-SOX, because of the flight sim, it's set up to revert to put this here when the approach starts to one of the IAFs instead of the IF, intermediate fix versus initial approach fix. So what you do is if you're going to T-SOX directly from like an out point, I don't know if that's the word I want to use, but it's what I'm using. You can actually hit this button, the VEC PCD button, and it says loc mode. What it'll do is give you your final approach course, and it'll line you up with the final approach anyways. Even if your approach goes wonky and wants you to go back that way and starts putting you in a circle, if you hit this at the right time, it'll just keep you right on the approach path, or the final approach course, FAC. See it up here. Alright, everything's looking good. We're good down to 2,200 feet, decreasing my altitude. And because we're on final, I'm going to bring the gear down. Our speed checks for landing gear. Bringing it down, that'll give us some drag to keep that speed reduced. I have 190 set, but I'm going to bring it back to 140 now. I've changed my speed bug. Instead of having to use this wheel down here, I have my arrow keys set up for it now, so when I push down on my arrow, it reduces my auto throttle speed to whatever I set it to. So that way I don't have to mess around. You will find when you first get in the plane, you won't be able to do that. Sometimes you'll have to hit the down arrow to change it from this speed Mach mode or whatever it's set up to. But like I say, there's no documentation. You just kind of got to figure it out as you go. Next point would have been app mod. And then FVAG. So we're at app mod. We're good down to 1,500 feet. So let's do that. 1,500 feet. Everything's looking good for this RNAV though. We're doing our step downs. We're just going to make sure all these step downs actually happen, that we level off of 1,500 and don't go below in this case. And I'm going to zoom in our range just a little more so we have a good view. Once we're past FVAG, we are good down to 1,100 feet. Missed approach would be climbed to 3,000 track of 285 degrees to Gibby as required shuttle climb. That's pretty good with a standard direct entry hold. I'm gonna, I bumped my joystick there. I'm gonna center the heading bug, or a track bug in this case, that's fine. Now that would always be a track bug once you hit the magic button, because landing gets enabled, and once landing's enabled you can't switch it to back to heading. It's just one of those things you learn from trial and error and probably lots of crashes, because that's just how it is. Alright, so after FVAG, the plate says, what did we say? 1,100. And we would have been handed over to tower, and hopefully by this point they'd have cleared us to land. And hopefully we see it when we get down there. 1,100 is set. Then our step down waypoint is Saxop. And it's recommended to be at 11:30, but that's fine. We might be a little bit below that at 11 because that's what we set in our buttons here. Now you do see it does give you a VNAV path, like a slope to follow. I don't trust it. That's why I leave VNAV off, because it does so many weird things that you lose control of what you want to do and the plane does what it wants to do. And it makes no sense. From a real world perspective, that would be dangerous. Okay. The next one is our MDA. We said 840, so we'll set 900. There we go, 900. Starting to get ground contact. I'll look straight ahead. I'll pick up my seat a bit to look over the nose. Hopefully we'll pick something up. Missed approach is threshold here for runway 29. But we got the lights in sight. We're going to land. Now you see that? I did not turn on VNAV. It turned itself on. Like, look at this. It's bringing us to the ground. Auto throttle. This is crazy, guys. DC, you need to fix this too, please. Like, that shouldn't have done that. I was trying to do a step down, and it literally was going to drive me into the ground. Like, what was that all about? Figure out why that turned back on, even though I turned it off, and please disable that. Dangerous. Alright, here we are. We did the RNAV onto runway 29. We're here, safe and sound. Geez, we could even hold short of runway 16, so that's pretty good. I didn't even have to use my spoilers. Alright, well that was a fun flight. I hope that you learned lots. Like I said, be careful of that VNAV. That will kill you. Well, in the flight sim. Because it does its own thing, and it makes no sense because I did not turn it on. Alright, thank you very much.